Well folks, welcome back to the workshop. Starting off the day with an old reliable Makita 9-inch grinder. This is the 9069, an old workhorse of Makita. Better not make a liar out of me now. No, we're good. Sounds like bearings. These were a great old machine. They're not the really old one, but they're old enough. What's this one? It looks like 1999. I got a good bit of use out of these ones. And they're still worth fixing up if you do have them lying around. Like somebody's already changed the brushes on this. Strap us down, get under here, change the bearings. That should hopefully get her running a wee bit smoother. That's gone. That one's up top's not too bad. As you can see, she's rubbing there. So maybe that one is bad. Something's not right anyway. Ooh. I think it's a bit more than just the bearings actually. The teeth on that bevel gear are completely gone. Right. I'm gonna need a little bit more than I thought. Question is, have I any parts for this? So I'll need the 2 gears and at least 2 bearings to fix this one. So give them a clean to wash all this out. Head should be fine. I have to remove this as well. Problem is, when they're that tight, you can do damage if you do it wrong. So you have to get this gear off, and you're also pressing the spindle out from the bearing on here. So the spindle is just going to come straight out along with this disc, but the bearing is taking all the weight as you're pressing down as well. The bearing itself can actually break through the aluminium housing at the back here, which you don't want. I'll just pack that out for now and see if it'll shift. That's her. Get rid of this here. We don't need that. This one's actually fairly dirty. Don't think this is the right grease on it either. washed out and ready to go again. Get a bit more life out of this machine. Parts washer's not looking healthy because there's a few machines washed out here this week. There's bits of grease and dirt all up on top the cover here, the plate. I need to give that a clean someday too. Not looking too bad. Might get away with this yet. It's just a set of bearings and 2 gears. The gears in these actually aren't all that expensive. So that's roughly about 10 or 12 euro. That one there costs about 20 or 30 euro. So it's not going to break the bank. But all in all, I want you to count the parts, the labour and the VAT. This repair should still be under half the price of a new machine. Now, have to change all the bearings, and that's by the looks of it. Bottom one's definitely gone. This one on the head is also gone. Now, test bearings, there's no real test. It's more to just do a sight and sound. If it looks bad, it needs to be replaced. The seals are blowing off, the balls are falling out. Obviously it's gone. All the way to tail, it's just the sound. You can hear that sort of wee bit rattly inside. It's not running smooth. In other words, that bearing's gone. Generally, for bearings, when they're completely gone, you'll see it. When they're about to go, you'll hear it. Like this one. When they're starting to go bad, you'll feel it. So that's about halfway between just about to fail and starting to fail. So whenever that's running, it'll actually have play going back and forth and moving the spindle, which will be causing the gears to wear even more. And on this one, you can actually hear it. That one there is also running free enough. It's not even completely free. She feels smooth. Doesn't look bad. A little dent there, mind you. But she feels okay. So it's not running too freely. Doesn't sound bad and it doesn't look bad. But it does sound bad if you give it a shake. You can hear the balls rattle back and forth inside. So if you want to test a bearing, if you want to know if they need to be replaced, look at it, see what it looks like. Turn it, see what it sounds like, and give it a feel to see what she feels like. If there's anything wrong on any of those steps, replace it. So this one is obviously gone. If that was any worse, it would have fallen apart. This is gone because it's slack, even though it feels okay. And this one sounds okay that way, but it sounds bad. Whenever that's running full speed, it'll actually sound like a wee jet engine. It'll sound so bad. So all of these need to be replaced. The first one is a 6203 and she's a nice Japanese NSK bearing. The next one is a 6301 and it's a Koyo Japanese bearing, another good one. And the last one again is an NSK by the looks of it. Is that a 6000? 6200. So I need to get that off, get them changed. Now, replacements I'm using is going to be FAG bearings. FAG. The ones I normally use, these here, are NSK bearings. These ones are made in Portugal. They're not the top of the range bearing, but they're a very good all-round bearing. The motor. Just help that go on. Pressure bearing on first. Then pressure gear on. Stick this on first. This plate is actually what retains your bearing in. 4 holes, but it's only these 2 that have threads in them. The 2 inner ones here locate onto these pins, so 2 outside ones that actually get bolted on. So we'll just line them up, press it on. Actually get both of them to bite before you tighten them up. Now obviously you're going to need grease in it, but do not fill the whole chamber. About that much grease is all you need. Basically all you're looking for is to cover the bottom and the gears. That's about it. If you put any more in, if you fill the whole thing, you're just going to cause the gears to cavitate. Too much grease is going to be as bad as too little. As long as there's some grease in it to coat the gears, that's all you need. So once it gets thrown around and you're using it and it heats up again, that grease will re-liquefy and start coating the gears again. So just put in enough and not too much. Brushes are already new, so no need to replace them. Nice one. One Makita 9069 9-inch grinder. Saved with a new set of gears, 3 new bearings. That's her. Ready for work. Okay, next up, the Bosch impactor. Not good. Doing squat. Not even putting on the LED or nothing. Right, there's only a wee cheap and cheerful Bosch. There's a GDR18LI. Don't even know the year. Sorry, there's the year there, 2012. Right, she's only a cheap and cheerful, wouldn't be heavy duty. She's only got a brushed DC motor in her. Generally, when they don't run and the lights come on, it could be a switch or it could be a motor. When they don't do anything, it's more than likely when they do something with the controller or the switch inside. She's not recognising anything. The switch and the controller are all one piece, so it just wouldn't be worth replacing that there. Only other thing it could be outside of the switch or controller, simply a broken wire. So before we give it up on it completely, we'll just check for a wee simple fix. Now, initially when you see something like that, if it's this fresh looking and doing nothing, it's probably going to be a switch and a controller. But because this one's actually a 2012 machine, so she's at least 10 years work done. Because it's that age, it could actually be a broken wire. Nah, she's gone. That's Bosch cheaping out. Like I say, sort of an entry level, basic sort of impact driver. Nothing great about it. It's built the same way as their premium tools. Same kind of switch, same controller, battery contact setup, all one piece. But they cheap out on the controller. She's not potted. Totally bare board, apart from a wee bit of a coating. As you can see in there, she's caught the green death. So either that's gotten wet or it's been lying up somewhere in a damp environment and it started to corrode. In other words, this ain't going to be fixed. And it's corroding back here too. Yeah. We'll price that board to see what it does, but I would say it's going to be too expensive. Nah, not worth it. €100 for this here controller. That's a long way off and worth doing. You could probably buy this for about €100. That ain't going to be worth fixing. And that is why you pay a bit extra and get a higher spec machine. Generally, they'll have a wee bit more protection on the boards. They'll at least be resin coated or potted. An open circuit board like that there ain't going to last no time in a power tool. If you take that out and it gets wet, that's going to be the end of it. So that is a no-go. Right, next up, another DeWalt nail gun. This is the second fix. Fault. Still nothing. Now, just getting a click and then the blinky light. Get on, see what's going on. Can't beat the hand screwdriver for bad torques. Drill ones are grand, but they round out very quick. They strip out less easily on a hand screwdriver. So I keep a couple of T10s lying around for these bad ones. Somebody's been on this as well because there's one or two screws missing. One missing there as well. Doesn't look to be anything wrong with it. Same blinking light. Also doing bump mode. Same thing. One quick shot and then dies. So a bad or a loose connection maybe. Nothing nipped, nothing broken. Not good. That looks okay. No real problem with this. It's not like it's done an awful lot of work. It's fairly fresh looking. Something I didn't check is these wires. Sometimes they can break here at the joint. Don't know the angle, the solder can break or the wire can break. But because there's such a heavy rubber heat shrink on it, which is actually full with a glue or silicone, they can break here but still stay attached. So to test them, it's normally always these two as well, the yellow or the brown. It's never the light, it's never the black or the red wire. It's always the Sense one because they're a little bit lighter. I just put a couple of nicks on these two cables in two different locations to actually test the connection and test the wire. That one's okay. The yellow one. No, that's alright as well. So it's not that. That's just one of these connectors. They don't seem to be, or they don't feel exactly the same strength. This one has got a weak or a bad joint. These are just wee connectors. There's just a spring on the inside. The wire goes in, slides in no problem, but can't come back out again because the spring is sitting at an angle. It's wedged in. You can see the steel plate on top. You can just make out the wee angle, but it's sticking down. That steel plate, if you want to release the wires, get a wee pokey thing, like a flat screwdriver, put it underneath, and push down the steel plate. That plate's sitting at an angle. If you push it down, it lifts up this end, allows the wire to come out again. So this one's nice and tight. This one's a lot slacker. So unless it's just not getting a good connection, just in case, get rid of the two of them and we'll use crump connections instead. Now I'm going to use these wee crumps, but I'm going to use the oversized ones. I've actually just cut off the tail of them as well to make them a little bit smaller to fit inside of here. Now, the reason why I'm using the bigger ones is simply because whenever they're crumped, they'll squash flat and have two ends either side. And if this doesn't cure the problem and I need to change the controller, instead of shortening the leads, I can actually just grind off or file down the two squash bits of metal as it folds over. If it's filed away, the two halves will actually open up again. They'll have the same size of lead. Try this first, just in case it is a simple connection problem. A good solid hold. And if I needed to, I can just hold these in a pair of vice grips and run that end across a bench grinder or file, grind off them, and it'll separate it again. But I only have to do that if this isn't actually the problem. See, she runs now. Nice one. That looks and sounds a lot better. They still fit in there nicely. Let's test her out. That'll do nicely. One DeWalt nail gun, DCN 660. Not firing a nail, motor wouldn't start, just kept shutting down again as soon as it started running. Electrical connection inside must have been bad. Placed these two connectors with crimps, sorted the problem. Next up we have an oldie, an old Bosch 36 volt SDS drill. This is the GBH 36 V/LI Professional, and these were professional. These were the heavy duty cordless SDS drills to be buying. This one here is from 2005, so that's 18 or 19 years of work done depending on when I actually bought it. These things here were proper workhorses. Even a corded machine, the hammer action in these here were actually stronger and faster for getting onto concrete. Motor wise, universal motor. If they were overworked, pushed them too hard, you could cook the motor on them, but generally didn't really have that bother. In general, you'd be getting these on throughout their lifespan over 10 or 15 years. You could be putting 3 or 4 sets of brushes onto these here, onto the one motor, and still running. I've had these on where the motor's completely pitted and concaved in the middle, where they've worn through the actual com bar. Great machines they were. The newer ones just are nowhere near as good as what these here were. Newer ones were powerful, yeah, but these here, these are the ones that actually lasted. Let's see what's wrong with it. Oh, she's running, I don't know how long. Yeah, you can smell it. The unmistakable smell of a cooked motor. So that is burnt out. She's running, but she's running very slow. And this thing's done quite a bit of work. All the rubber over moulding starting to come off. It actually is coming off. She's all tipped on down here. Housing's actually cracked there. That won't affect the machine, mind you. It'll be fine even with that. But she needs a motor anyway. Just take that off for now. There we go. Right on top. One blown segment. She's not blown out completely, but she has burnt out. That armature is bad. It needs to be replaced. Stator still has good power on it. Yeah, 2 of them gone low. See the colour difference? Surefire way to tell you that that's burnt out. If you look at the windings on them, it doesn't show anything. Looks fine. You can see where the heat, where it's overheated, is actually blowing off the resin for the end of it. So that's gone. Needs replaced. Now that bit there, the gearbox, gives very, very little trouble. Barely ever have to open them there. Generally, for these, it's going to be the battery retainer, brushes, bearings, and the actual armature. They're the main things you had to change. Very rarely did you even change the armature on them. Generally, they ran that long, you didn't have to worry too much about it. You would easily get 10 years out of one of these here machines. And that's with proper professional use. This one, brushes aren't bad. Because we're changing the armature, I'm also going to change the brushes. Now, see if I have one of these. And look, one set of brushes and one armature. That's your part number there if you're ever needing one. Type that into Google and you get plenty of places supplying it. Comes with one complete kit, the bearings and plate all attached, ready to go. When you compare the old one to the new, you can see how much wears in that there com bar. Not as bad as some of them I've seen, but still a good bit of wear. Right. As soon as we have access, we'll just put a little bit more grease on. Not much, mind you. More so for the gears than anything else. Line her up. Push it down. These slots cut out of the actual fan here, so that you can get these bolts on. Field back on. Now these are directional. Little tabs on the field. The small one goes down, the big one goes up, and it's actually connecting on down here. That's her. New brush is fitted, new armature. Everything's sitting right. That should be her. Now, does she sound better now? More importantly, smell better. Sounds better anyway. It'll take a while for the smell to go away. that's her. Up and running again. She might be going on 20 years old, but now with a new motor, you'll get a few more years out of it yet. A lot cheaper than buying a new one anyway. Now we've got a trend 1/2 inch router. Now I really wouldn't be a fan of these things. What's this? T7E. Trend used to use the DeWalt machines, not anymore. Don't actually think Trend mix these. Pretty sure they're just imported from China. But this one is a 2021 and the customer says it just needs a set of brushes. Now looking at that thing, as you can see from the base, barely a mark on it, no dust, no dirt. There's no way that thing has ran through a set of brushes already and was only made in 2021. So I can nearly guarantee you this one's going to be burnt out. Because for Trends, they normally are either the motor burnt out or the controller failed. You can actually hear it. Not the spluttering sound, just as it slowed down. You can hear that wee scraping sound. That's where one of the segments is raised up, blown out of the armature, and it's filing down the brushes. Take all this apart too. Pull this out to have a quick wee look, just to satisfy our curiosity. Even the spade's not tight. There we go. One bad armature. Blew the segment out here. So that's gone. Not worth fixing. There's nothing about these machines I like. And it's not to say they're the cheapest machine to buy. They're quite expensive what they are. See it connected there, look. No strength in it. Just the cheapest of little spade connectors. Why am I even tightening it up? The thing's burnt out. A little cheap controller. Cheap everything. Price it anyway, just for the fun of it. This is simple. It's not worth fixing. More so, no parts available. Onto the Trend site. All my spare parts it's showing for that machine is a set of brushes. That's it. In other words, not a thing I can do with that. And as for saying it's not all that expensive a machine, the thing only costs about £130. It's actually very cheap for a 1/2 inch router. So no wonder that didn't last. Good enough for small jobs, but it has been advertised for worktop jigs and whatnot for cutting through 40mm worktops. Don't think this is going to be strong enough for that kind of work. Not really surprised that thing's burnt out. That's trend quality for you. Next up, we have another Milwaukee grinder. This one, not even going to read that all out. 2023 machine. This time with a different problem. Paddle switch. Broken off the end of it, the pin that actually allows it to pivot. So I don't know how you done that, if it took a fall, or if we jammed the lever and actually busted it out. Don't know. So I'll have to replace that. But first of all, make sure it works. Because if it got a fall and broke that off, the grinder itself might not work. All she is, little tiny micro switch on here. Yeah, she's working. That's working fine. If you have one of these and you do happen to break the paddle switch off, don't go throwing that away. You actually need the parts on it. And luckily this man must have realised that, because he had the brains to hold on to the spring and to keep the handle. He taped them all up together to make sure they didn't get lost. You can buy the paddle switch on its own, but it doesn't come with the spring, nor this here, nor this spring. You have to buy them all separately. So if you throw it away, you're buying 4 parts. If you keep it, you're only buying this. That actual red paddle switch itself only costs what? Less than a tenner. So well worth replacing if you do bust it. Another point to make is this is the newer model, 2023. This is the FSAGV, the newer one. This isn't the one we normally see in with the bad bearings, so haven't seen one of these ones in yet. Be interesting to see if Milwaukee have improved on that wee bearing. Not so bad. We have an improvement. It's still only a 605 bearing, but it's a rubber seal this time, which is better than the metal shield because it keeps more dust out. But the big thing is it is actually a name brand. HCH bearings. Still only made in China, but they're one of China's biggest bearing manufacturers. So they've been one of the leading manufacturers of bearings for a long time. And in the early 2000s, they actually went global and started selling bearings everywhere. So their factory's actually even bigger again now. So they actually are a massive manufacturer and probably one of the best ones in China. So it is an actual name brand. Still made in China, but a big massive improvement. So that's not going to fail as often. So if you are buying a Milwaukee grinder, make sure it's at least one of these here. A more modern one. The older version, the bad bearings might be a thing of the past. That one, don't actually know how much work is done. That is as fresh as the day it came out of the factory. Not a thing wrong with it. So leave that well enough alone. All we need to change is the paddle switch. Now you would see this happening quite a bit. The paddle switch breaking off. But it's not a fault with the machine, it's more a fault with the operator. You've been too rough with it, or dropping it or something like that. And it's not just Milwaukee you see it with any brand with a flappy paddle switch. Nobody actually really likes these that much. They're great for wee quick jobs, if you're just holding it for a few seconds, but if you're doing any sort of prolonged use, they're wide and on, you can't lock it on. You can only just have to hold it on the whole time. They wouldn't be popular, but companies especially, if they're buying equipment for employees or it's been used on site or on the premises, they much prefer the flappy paddle. It's much safer in the long run. Saves on a lot of negligence and accidents because it can't be left switched on. Once you drop it, it switches off. Cuts out a lot of accidents, so people buying the machines and companies much prefer them. Now this, if you're needing to replace it, that's your part number there, and it's not expensive. Costs less than a tenner. But like I say, it doesn't come with these parts, so don't lose them. And if you do, you'll have to buy a couple of extra bits, but they're not expensive anyway. Difficult thing about it is just changing over this wee safety catch. It's just pressed on. Prise it up. All it is a wee spring pin that runs the whole way across, and obviously the wee black plastic flappy boy for catching. The main thing that goes wrong with them is the spring itself. See, it hooks on down there, and the spring either breaks off or the thing just jams up with rust. So the actual safety catch no longer goes down. It's just a flappy paddle all the time. Most boys don't actually mind it, but if it's a company wanting to keep insurance down and cut out accidents, they prefer to have it functioning. To actually install it, set it back here first. You can see where it drops on. Your spring is going to sit back here. Go behind first, then drop it down so that the spring actually sits into position. There we have it in position, the spring in the right place. Just press it on. That's it. That's it. Simple as that. You can see the way it sits there. And it's just a tight fit of the plastic housing that holds the actual pin in place. That's her. Simple fix. As soon as we're at it, we'll also just blow this out as well, keep it clean. So as for actual repairability in this one, what's available to buy, it's actually not too bad. The motor unit, same as always for Milwaukee, one piece. So everything inside of here is one piece. If any of it fails, forget about it. The handle itself, the clamshell, the two halves, you can buy that. You buy the paddle switch and the wee pieces along with it. That's one of the most important bits. That and the bearing, you can also buy that on its own. Only costs like £5 or £6. The lock pin for locking your blade, that's a separate assembly on its own. The actual cap, spring, lock pin and a washer all comes together. Not a bad price either. But the aluminium head doesn't come on its own. You have to buy that with the pin and a couple other wee bits along with it. The head here, if this bearing fails, or your gear, that's a whole assembly. So the whole spindle, bearing, housing, gear, clip, all that there, and the gear on your armature as well, that's all one piece. You can actually buy the rotor as well on its own, but that doesn't come with the gear. If you need to replace the rotor and the gear, you're buying this and this together with the whole price of the machine. But the most important bits, bearing, the actual paddle switch, lock pin, they're generally the most things that break. You can buy them in small assemblies that aren't that expensive, so it's not so bad. They seem to be improving a little bit. More sub-assemblies. The bits you want are available on their own. But the main thing is the bearing quality. It's nice to see a name brand bearing instead of just one that says China written on it. It's nice to see them at least trying to improve things. Now the other thing is the housing. Still the same type of plastic housing. The bearing's just sitting inside the plastic housing itself. It'd be better if there's like a metal sleeve in there maybe to start to dissipate a little bit of the heat, or a rubber bush on the end of the armature itself. That's what most other brands like Makita would do. have a wee rubber sleeve that sits on this and sits inside the housing here. It's there to help center the bearing, but as well, if the bearing totally fails and overheats and burns, it'll just heat up the rubber and not burn through the housing itself. So it's just a matter of actually just replacing the bearing. You can still use the same sleeve normally, and you'll not destroy the plastic housing. That would be another improvement they could do, but we'll settle for a decent bearing for now. Don't like that micro switch either. They don't last an awful long time. Dirt and dust can affect them as well. Plus, when you're using it, there's just no click as you switch it on, you know. It's a small thing, but kind of annoying. Plus, the cheap little micro switch only costs pennies, and you can't buy that on its own. You have to buy the whole motor unit. That's just about her. That's her. One Milwaukee grinder with a new flappy paddle switch. A nice, easy, most importantly, cheap fix. That's her. Now, next up we have a large DeWalt core drill. Now, this is an older machine, clearly been worked. It's a D21589 or 580. Can't see it clearly. Obviously well used and abused, and by the looks of it, it used to be owned by a hire company as well. So this thing would have done quite a bit of work. Question is, what's wrong with it? Doing nothing. Getting a little flash off the overload LED, but it won't start. Sometimes it can be better for a machine to make a no sound instead of a bad sound. This here could be a few things. Check the obvious stuff first. Lead, brushes, control board, could be the expensive one. And we'll go from there. Now, diamond core drills like this, they're not cheap. And they're not something you want to be replacing too often. And that's the expensive bit. The actual controller. They could be costing upwards of about €100. Generally when they go, you'll see some sort of burn mark on it. Nothing too obvious than that. That's not to say it isn't gone, but it doesn't look gone so far. But first off, we'll check the cheap stuff. And the easy to fix stuff. Lead first. So lead's okay. Switch generally doesn't give much bother. switch is okay. Forget about all these wires up here. They're just for the variable. The main part of the switch you want to test is the actual main on-off. So you're going across the live and neutral to the actual main motor leads coming out of here. Neutral's this side, live's that side. The neutral should be connected continuously, shouldn't be switching. It's only the live that's generally switching. Just make sure it goes on and off when it's meant to. If it works, it works, and if it doesn't, replace it. Nothing wrong with the switch. So next we'll go on to the brushes. They don't look too bad. They're not burnt on the front, they're not worn out. They're maybe about halfway worn. That one's okay anyway. And that one looks okay. A little bit stiff. That's just from the dust. Nothing wrong with that. Just turn your end here to turn the armature and make sure there's no bad segments. You'll see one darker than the others, or raised up or blown out or something. Generally, when it's armature bad, the thing will still run. It'll just run badly. The only way the armature will actually stop it from running, if it has a dead segment or it's actually sitting on the dead segment, then it won't run. Or it actually is blown apart and the segment has blown clean out of it, but you'll see an obvious failure. Nothing wrong with that armature, so that's not the problem. So after that, if it's not the lead, switch or brushes, you're getting into the controller and the field. I hope it's not the controller. It doesn't look bad. So next off, we'll go to the field, and straight away it is the field that's wrong. Can you see it? That's the field wire there. So there's two windings on the field. So you'll have your main live coming in, it'll go on to the field and wrap around one coil, it'll come out, then into the brush holder, which will put it through the brush. It'll come across the armature into this brush and then into the second field winding, round and round a few times, and then that winding will come out into the neutral. So the field is two separate coils and they're connected into the brush holders and back here to the switch. That is one of the leads going into the brush holder. See this one up here? You can see in that one the two leads are going into this brass screw and clamp. And the other side then, that's your lead coming up from the field. So it should be the same on this side. Two leads on the brush holder. Don't know why there's two leads on it, just for extra current flow maybe. But that lead there is broken off. That one has broken away. You can see where it was attached there. So you have two options. One, strip apart the machine, take this half the motor away, pull out the armature, unwire the field and unbolt it and replace the whole field. That's the expensive way. Or just reconnect this wire. It's just a cable. All you have to do is reconnect it. But she has an insulated cable. Take off the sheath. But it is an insulated cable. You have to one, remove this wee white heat cover. And two, there will be a lacquer on the actual copper lead itself, which will be an insulator. You'll not get very good contact unless you actually remove that bit of lacquer. All you have to do is just scrape the lead to clean it off.
Just scrape that off to get to the fresh copper underneath. That'll give good contact, allow better current to flow. And it's just a simple matter of getting this wire back into the clamp. Tuck that in, tighten it down, and you're good to go. Now that could happen more than once throughout the life of the machine. If it does happen more than once, you could lose some of the wire length. As you can see, she coils around the brush holder, back down and around, down in there. If you don't have enough length to hook it on here, just pull the wire up through this opening and put it directly in. See that one? I would say that one has broken before. See how long that one is in comparison to that. But that should sort it out and be a nice simple fix. The thicker one goes on top, or it's going to be getting more abuse. Now, moment of truth. Does that cure the problem? That's her. One DeWalt diamond core drill, fixed up again by just repairing a broken wire. That's her. Now, another Makita. This is the old Makita 3620 from 2003. Now, see what's wrong with this one. That's odd. Why would that be tipped up like that? Oh, hold on. Switch faulty. Not so bad. That's probably why she was tipped up to stop people switching it on. Why was it tipped up though? Let's see what she does. One shot wonder. Stops, you second you press the trigger, starts and just dies again. Also, actual release is gone here too, so that'll have to be fixed. The bearings sound okay. I had to change tact here today. Normally the repairs just first come first served. There's actually that many new machines coming in now. New machines from non-customers, just new people coming to the shop. So we've actually had to put them on the back boiler and only focus on our own customers. Because there's that much stuff coming in, I can't get through it all. So obviously our own regular customers get priority. So I've had to just focus more on them and put the other ones on the back foot. So that's gone. We'll just check the rest. Yep, bearings are okay. Wee bit of sawdust on here. But otherwise should be alright. Plus the lead is also good. So all we need is a switch and a control lever. Hopefully that's it. One lever and one switch. That's the part number. Simple as that. It's a shame they don't make these anymore. I have one myself. They were a fantastic little router. The newer one is good, but it just does not last or withstand as much as these old girls. Now, you've got your very special nut already in place. Just transfer over the washer, stick on your lever, and just adjust to sit. Don't like the way it's sitting, push out your nut, adjust its position, tighten it up again. That's better. Much more comfortable. Now, does she work? That's her. One Makita 3620 with a new switch and lock lever. That's her.